gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Back for round 2 today. I'm going 3 rounds today. 3 rounds, man. I'm a prize fighter. I'm just ready to go, and I'm really hungover now. Like my hangover took like all day to manifest itself, but it's here now. So I will not be drinking, Peter. If you're drinking, more power to you. I'm not
on
going.
the water.
Are you going with water? All right, I'm going with hydration. A little bit of this stuff here. I don't know if you saw earlier. I was on with Roger.
Caught a bit of that, yeah.
Yeah, we did we did the metal church thing. Oh, that's right, you were in the chat, yeah. And I had a weird night, dude. Like I went out, started practicing at 1:00 with not my band. It's just buddies of mine, and we're just fucking around and learning some tunes and having fun and using some of my gear. And I was struggling all day with like issues and trying to get the right tone. I was kind of pissed, so I didn't really drink all day. I was nursing one beer, and then at the end his kids came home because they're all there for Christmas, and we're packing up and winding cords and getting stuff put together, and somehow we got into telling stories and playing like death metal and black metal on my buddy's PA system at ear bleeding levels. Like it was just so fucking loud. And we're all starting to talk, and next thing you know, we're all starting to drink. So we hung out for like an extra hour, just standing around drinking. And I didn't realize, man, but I plowed 2 beers down before I left, on top of the one that I had. And these were all like 8.5, like pretty high percentage
strong
alcohol.
enough,
Yeah. By the time I got home, which I only had a 4-mile drive. Should not have driven. I just should not have, because I cannot get in the habit of doing that, because it got me into a lot of trouble in my past life. But I wasn't like hammered until I got to the house, and I started making something to eat, and I'm like, hey man, I got some good stouts in there. I'm going to drink some of those. And I only drank one more, but it was a 9.5. And I came in and I was going to do my Collector Scum episode 3 last night. I laid down at 7:30 and I was out. And I woke up at 1:45 thinking it was the afternoon, because I have one of these it's not on right now, but the little star things that puts the galaxies on your ceiling. You ever see those? The lights.
Oh yeah, like a night light.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's like it has. I don't know why it's not working. I dropped it, and I may have unplugged it. I think I did. Yeah,
a projector type.
It's one of these things, and it's got like the lights that project out, and yeah. And Rick gave it to me, actually, cheap one there. And long story short, I thought it was daylight. I was so out of it. I thought it was daylight. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Right away, instead of getting up and going to the bathroom and checking outside, or going to the out to the kitchen to get something to drink, I immediately freaked out. I'm like, oh no. It's like I already missed our thing by 45 minutes. And I sent Roger an email, and here it wasn't. It was when I finally did get up, I'm like, oh, it's AM, not PM. I also found it I rarely sleep more than 5 to 6 hours tops. 4.5 to 5 is like my norm, sadly, because of my illness. It does weird things to my sleep architecture, and the thing that the thing that bothered me was that where the hell was I going with that? Oh, when I got up, had I got up and walked out to the kitchen, I would have noticed that it wasn't late. But when I'm sleeping, I rarely sleep more than a couple hours. And as I thought about it afterwards, I'm like, dude, you've never slept 15 hours in your life, like, except for when you were young. There's no way that was, you should have known that wasn't what was going on. So it was just a weird sort of funny thing that happened. And so the good news is we're here now, and we're here to do our dad episode finally. I'm trying to think when I started these. Did I start these back in September? I think I did.
I think it was around that time.
Yeah, and I took a lot of November off, so I needed a break from everything, and I stepped away for a while. Had a lot of medical stuff happening and insurance shit happening, and so I probably could have wrapped up with my first group of people. I had 25 people initially, and I thought, well, I'll just do 25, and then we'll do something else. But I'm actually thinking I'll probably jump and do another set. So I might try to bring a few more people in, some new people. Like Johnny. Well, Johnny and I did one, but I've got a few new people that are kind of coming into the fold that I want to kind of incorporate it in. And who knows, we may swing back around, but we're finally getting ours done, Peter. And we kind of talked about it. And initially, I can't remember. Do you remember the bands you proposed to me? Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm just checking through our chat on Instagram. So it was around September.
Okay.
Um,
So I
I
thought.
think.
Do you
Let me
remember the
see.
bands? I can't remember because I've talked to so many people now.
Um, I had mentioned Bark Psychosis.
Yes. And I said
Um,
I didn't know enough of their stuff to go there.
Let me see. I think I mentioned Sonic Youth was another one.
Yeah, and I don't really know them. I know them, but I don't know them. Know them like I probably should.
Um, The Cure, but you done a deep dive on them, isn't that right?
The Cure we done a deep dive on. That's right. Yeah, there's one or two that I think you proposed that I'd done a deep dive.
Stevie Wonder was another one.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Shit. Which I don't really. I know songs. What is it? Songs in the Key of Life, but I
Yeah.
don't really know anything else by him. Sadly, not that wouldn't be an interesting one. I mean,
Um,
go ahead.
Massive Attack. Massive Attack was another
Oh
one
yeah,
I'd
we
mentioned.
did. We did mention that, and that was one that I struggled with. But I think we both were going to pick Mezzanine, probably, right?
But
Or we
I
were.
would have, if you went for Mezzanine, I would have went for Blue Lines.
Well, I mean, that's one to keep in mind for future because I love Massive Attack. So that's, and I think, but what I think was cool was, did you mention Cocteau or did I?
I think it was me here going by
Right.
the chat. Yeah, going by the chat. Yeah, it said
Okay.
Cocteau Twins.
And I think when you proposed it, I was like, oh, that's the one right there. I think I jumped at that right away.
Straight
Mainly,
away,
yeah,
and straight away
mainly,
you picked the album.
yeah, yeah. Ah, well, I know. I didn't even let you do it. I generally let everybody do it, but I feel so strongly about that album. I was like, man, I've got to talk about that album. And not surprisingly, when I went back to it, it was like, man, it was like a first love. It was like that first kiss or that. It's just such an incredible album. In fact, I was looking around for it on vinyl now since I have a vinyl player. I'm like, man, I got to have that on vinyl. But yeah, so you mentioned Cocteau Twins, and the minute you mentioned, I'm like, because I think you were kind of like initially, I think you threw a couple metal bands. I'm like, you know what, man, we
Yeah.
don't have to do metal. It does not have to be black metal. It does not have to be death metal. It doesn't have to be, it could literally, it could have been, I don't know, something as weird and out there as Neil Young or something like because you're pretty eclectic even though you post mostly black metal stuff. You've got a
Yeah.
pretty eclectic collection. You're like Rick. We are kind of chameleons. We love our metal. It's our backbone, so to
Yeah.
speak, but we have a lot of appendages that go everywhere else, right?
Well, this is, I suppose, how I end up discovering Cocteau Twins because I've been into metal all my teenage years, and
Sure.
I, I, I do recall being in the Heaven or Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure I heard it when it was on the charts at the time, but it wasn't until probably the late 90s when I was at university.
Right.
Mid late 90s, I was at university in my early 20s, and that's where I just started listening, just searching for other types of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, right, I will take a dive back into Cocteau Twins, and my first album was Heaven or Las Vegas because that was the
Okay.
one that was highly
All right.
recommended.
Yeah.
So and then after that, I went looking for more, and the next album that people were recommending to me was Head Over Heels. So that's why I've picked that. Though I did have a struggle to try between that and Treasure
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to go up against Heaven or Las Vegas.
Right.
But I decided to stick with my gut feeling. My initial instinct was head over heels.
Yeah, and I mean they have I gotta pull up my spreadsheet. Hang on one second. What happened there? Dude, what happened there? Bear with me a sec, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. What is going on here, man? What is going hang on. I'm coming back. There we go. Why did it do that? Very strange. Okay, there we go. Why do you keep doing that, dude? Hold on. I'm having stress here. Why am I having this stress? Shit. Bear with me a sec, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
on my new laptop and I'm not sure why, but it's acting fucking weird. Like, why? Hold on. Come on, man. What the fuck are you doing here? All right. Bear with me. There we go. There we go. All right. I was having some bizarro stress. I'm trying to pull up my email where I have my cheat sheet. There we go. Now we're good. All right. So I have it side by side. Yeah, for me, the Cocteau Twins. Interestingly, I'm a child of the '80s. I was a teenager during that when their album started coming out. I was in high school. I do not remember this band, man. I did not. When I finally discovered them around 2001, 2002, I'd never heard of them before. And in fact, I thought it was, I knew Jean Cocteau. I knew that name. I think a writer, right? I believe a writer, or an artist. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But I didn't put it together. I kept thinking of like Thompson Twins or something like that, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it was an '80s band,
Yeah.
predominantly '80s band. They do have a little bit in the '90s, but it was kind of it was one of those things where I was like, wow, if they're like Thompson Twins, I'm probably not going to dig them. And although I'd probably have to step back from that now. I kind of like some Thompson Twins stuff, but I didn't really discover them until very early in the 2000s, and I think it was possibly through Steven Wilson. Him and I talking. He's like, "Don't you know the Cocteau Twins?" I'm like, "No, but it kind of was like it opened up this new world to me, man, because this sound was something very unique, I think, to that window of that era of 82 to 86, 88, where the 4AD label was, bands like, you're talking bands like Bauhaus, you're talking bands like Clan of Zymox, you're talking about This Mortal Coil,
Yeah.
a lot of those bands that were kind of sprung. They all kind of sort of morphed out of the Joy Division New Order vibey thing, right? And kind of moved into this realm. But this was something I missed entirely. And really, to this day, I was thinking back, I'm like, man, I had to have heard some of this shit, didn't I? And I don't recall it at all. Now, again, it was a UK thing, and they weren't really big in the States until the album that I picked. So that kind of makes, and they never got huge. It wasn't like that. But they became more marketable. That's when I believe Capitol got involved. I think they were signed to Capitol.
Capitol did the US distribution
Right.
from Blue Bell Knoll, wasn't it?
Blue Bell Knoll on, right. Mm. And so, for me, this was a band that once I discovered it, I was like, holy shit. Because I kind of discovered Dead Can Dance around the same time period. So, late 90s for Dead Can Dance, another 4AD band, I believe. And you just kind of were like, oh, this is a whole new avenue of music I've never really dove into. And it really was, there was a period there in the early 2000s where I listened to Cocteau Twins all the time, man, just all the time. Like to the point where it was like, all right, I got to quit listening to these guys. I am getting kind of sick of it. But, because there was also at that same time, you had Sisters of Mercy, you had that style of UK alt rock going, the goth rock thing going on too. This is gothic, but it's not like goth. It's not that kind of goth.
No, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
they call it ethereal, dream pop, ethereal rock, shoegaze, right? I mean,
Yeah.
My Bloody Valentine was before this, but it was like
Well, My Bloody Valentine, were they not formed in the 80s?
they did or didn't? Did you
So,
say?
no, I Cocteau Twins were before them.
Oh, were
So
they?
Yeah, as far as I understand, I think it was the 80s when the.
Let me look here.
Because was it
Oh, you're
Cocteau
right.
Twins were
Right.
formed in 79?
Said 83, and you're right. Cocteau was like 79, 80. Yeah. So yeah, they probably stole a little. Although the Cocteau Twins were much softer. They weren't like, there wasn't that noise element overtaking it like on Bloody Valentine was volume and intense washes of reverb and delay,
Repetition.
chorus, repetition. Right. Yeah. So
And-
James, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I what are you talking about? What? I'm not even sure what you're talking about, dude.
Creation Records, yeah, they were the shoegaze record. My Bloody Valentine was signed to Creation.
Right.
And they had a big fallout with
Well,
the label.
That's another good point that Rick brings up, Jeff Buckley, which I fell in love with in 99, 2000, right after I discovered Grace. I think that may have been the connection for me because Jeff was actually dating Liz Fraser later around that period, later on in the late 90s or mid 90s or something like that. I believe they had something going on.
They obviously have the connection that they covered Song of the Siren from his dad on This Mortal Coil, which is probably one of their better known songs. So,
it's beautiful.
But interestingly, talking about the 4AD label, I was aware of that label from earlier.
You were?
Yeah, because it
was an offshoot of Beggars, right? It was an offshoot of Beggars Banquet, I believe. I think they were tied. Ivo Watts was somehow tied in.
Watts, yeah. Well, I knew that label from, I talked about this band yesterday, Belly.
Right.
From the US. And also Throwing Muses. And,
right.
I'm pretty sure wasn't the Breeders pod it was on 480. So when I was getting deeper into death metal, at the same time I was big into US indie rock.
Right. Yes.
And I still am. So
yeah, so am I too. I mean, I really am. I love all that stuff. Slow Dive. James mentioned Slow Dive up there. Definitely there. Deftones was much later. Sigur Rós. I can't remember when Sigur Rós's first album came out, but that was way after, quite a bit after. That was early 2000, wasn't it, or late 90s? Agitus Brunton or whatever. That was quite a ways after Cocteau Twins. I don't know The Weeknd, and I don't Napalm Death. Yeah, Napalm Death has a lot to do with Cocteau Twins, for sure. What the fuck?
Well, I can see that. I've heard them talk about the Cocteau Twins before, but I could probably see it from the likes of Garlands, the early stuff.
Right.
Potentially could have had some influence on Napalm Death in the early days. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I was really glad that you brought this up because now I'm not a Cocteau Twins historian. I don't know. I have most of the albums. I think I have actually. Now that I think of it, I might have them all. Let me look at something here quick. I didn't pull any of mine, so I hope you got everything there. I believe, right?
I have our two albums, so head over heels.
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
And I just brought along Treasure. I'll see it's almost a pick.
I don't have this. I don't think I have 4 Calendar Cafe actually in hard copy. I think I have that in CD-ROM. or CDR. I do have Milk and Kisses, the last one. So I have everything else. I don't have this Moon and the Harold Budd thing.
Oh yeah, which basically was their album, but
Yeah.
they for some reason decided not to
And like I said, I think I
advertise
only
it.
have, I think I only, of the 15 EPs, I think I have, I think I might only have one or two in like actual hard copy. And
Yeah,
the rest of the stuff I have is mainly on CDR for that. And I just, like I said, I went hunting for that before we went live. I kind of went hunting for that, the box set of all of that stuff, and almost fell off my bed when I saw the price of it. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Not at $400 or 300 and some dollars. So, well, let's talk about a little bit. Let's do a little bit of history on the band. Very basic stuff here. Cocteau Twins were a Scottish rock band, active from 1979 to 1997. They were formed in Grangemouth, by Robin Guthrie on guitars and drum machine, Will Hedgie on bass, and adding Elizabeth Fraser on vocals in 81, and replaced Hedgie with multi-instrument Simon Raymond in 1983. The group earned critical praise for their ethereal, effects-laden sound and the soprano vocals of Fraser, whose lyrics often eschew any recognizable language. I think they call it glossolalia, where you don't really you enunciate and you make words that sound like words, but they're not really words. They pioneered the 1980s alternative subgenre of dream pop, ethereal pop, and helped define what would become shoegaze. They have 9 studio albums, and they have 11. This says 11 EPs, but I just counted. I think there's actually 15. Yeah, I think there's 15. Oh wait, no, there is 11 because there's a couple of reissues in there that they've got, and then there's a bunch of compilations, probably 15 of those, of which I have the one that I would suggest people get is called, where is it at? Wait, is that live? That might be live. Hold on. Actually, it is. I think it is live now that I look at it. Where'd you go? It's the BBC sessions. It's a 2 CD set. I don't know where that went.
John Peel was an early fan as well.
Who was?
John Peel.
Oh, Peel. Right. Yeah. And there might be some Peel sessions on that. I can't remember what it's called. I can't find it in the. I don't know, unless maybe it's a compilation. Pretty sure it's called BBC Sessions, or maybe it's John Peel Sessions. I don't remember. It's a 2 CD job. Really, really good, man. Live stuff, which is surprising because this band is so overwhelmingly. They have a drum machine, obviously, which actually for a drum machine, it sounds pretty good throughout. I don't have a lot of problems with it, mainly because everything's so washy and overladen with chorus and delay and reverbs and modulation on the guitars and on the bass and on the synths. It's hard really to know. All the stuff is sort of like one big stew. It's like a potpourri of sound as opposed to things sticking out. Occasionally that happens. The thing that sticks out mainly is Fraser's vocals. She's just one of the rare talents in the world and just a voice of an angel, man. So real quick, commercially, their most successful studio album, Heaven in Las Vegas, which is the one that I chose, was released in 1990, reaching number 7 in the United Kingdom and number 99 in the Billboard 200. Heaven in Las Vegas was certified silver by British Phonograph Industry. It eventually sold 235,000 copies by 96, according to Billboard. The album was included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. It was voted number 218 in the 3rd edition of Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums. In 2020, Rolling Stone listed it at number 245 in its list of 500 greatest albums of all time. The band have had 4 of their studio albums reach number 1 in the UK indie chart. What made you choose this band?
Well, we were going through the list. I was firing names at you.
Right.
Either some of them you had covered in a deep dive, which you set down some rules that can't be covered in a deep dive. You obviously didn't want it to be metal. I was looking over at one of my shelves, which I have a mixture of styles on. Mostly they're not metal though. They're just, you mentioned Neil Young CDs sitting there, jazz CDs, classical music CDs, and I just seen the Cocteau Twins, Heaven or Las Vegas, man. There's an interesting one because that's an album I absolutely love. That was the one I heard first, like I said. So I just threw it out there because you're batting away all the rest of them. So something had to stick.
Yeah, and I mean, I was super glad you did because really, I don't know that anyone else that I'm doing these with would have brought this band up. And it didn't even occur to me to do it, but the minute you said it, it was like, that's the one. That's the one we got to do. Because one of my things with the Dad series is I don't want it to just be all metal. I want it to be classic. I want it to be blues. I want it to be anything and everything goes, as long as I haven't talked about the band before.
Yeah.
Which is tough because I've talked about a lot of bands, but there's still hundreds of bands that I love that we can still get into. So this was cool. I was really glad that we went this road.
Do you want to know what the next band would have been if you had said no?
What's that?
All About Eve.
I don't know anything by them. I know the name.
Oh, right, okay.
But I don't know them. So see, I'm limited sometimes too. I mean, I know the name, of course, but it's not a band that I know anything about. So there's some of those bands that came out around that era, like in the late 80s, 90s, the Brit stuff that I kind of missed. There's other bands though, like that I really love that nobody ever talks about, like the Verve. Like I fucking love the Verve, and nobody ever brings that band up at all anymore because I think they're long gone. But yeah, so we'll work on some stuff for the next issue. But let's get into this one. Let's talk about Head Over Heels, and that album came out on. It was their second album. Came out October 24th, 1983. So I was just starting my senior year in high school. Was recorded at Palladium Studios in Edinburgh, Scotland. Came out on the 4AD label, and they self-produced this. How old were you in 1983, Peter?
I would have been 5.
You were 5.
I would have been, yeah, but not far off turning 6. But yeah, I would have no clue. At that age, I was probably listening to. My mum and dad had records. They had the Monkees.
Yeah, of course.
They had Shawady Waddy.
Okay, all right.
They had Horselips. If you know that.
I know that name. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're an Irish Celtic rock band.
Yep.
They had Status Quo, so we just put on any record in the house, and obviously whatever was on the radio at the time. So yeah, Cocteau Twins were far away from my sphere of musical listening habits at that age.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is prime time 80s stuff. I'm a junior in high school, but in 1983, I'm listening to Rush Signals. I'm listening to Judas Priest, probably Screaming for Vengeance. Yeah, Screaming. That's and Maiden. I'm probably listening to fucking Peace of Mind. No, was Peace of Mind out? Yeah, Peace of Mind, right?
Peace of Mind was
yeah. So that's the stuff I'm into at that point in time, and still Yes, and some of my classic prog rock bands I'm still getting into, but I'm not really focused on this type of music, even though it's out there, and I do know many of those 80s bands. This one escaped me. So let's jump into it. Why don't you talk about this album and what made you choose it then?
Okay, so yeah, so when we first got chatting and we agreed on Cocteau Twins, you immediately said you wanted to take Heaven or Las Vegas, which, like I said, was the reason I came up with the Cocteau Twins because I seen that CD sitting on the
Yeah.
shelf, and it was my introduction to the band. So I was like, damn. But when I was,
I think what
when
I
did-
did I say you couldn't have it, or did I say I think we're going to choose the same one?
no, you said you'd fight me for it. I think was
Oh,
your
I
words.
did. I was that vociferous about it. Wow.
Oh
okay.
yes, straight away.
Holy shit! What
You
an
said
asshole.
normally you let the guest pick first, but
I
in this
do, but in
occasion,
this case, I was like,
Yeah.
so I had to do it. Yeah.
So I seen that as a bit of a challenge, but the reason I picked Head Over Heels because when I first got Heaven or Las Vegas, I went looking for more about the band, and anyone I talked to or whatever I could see early days online, any reference was being to Head Over Heels
Right.
as the next album, as one of their important albums. So
Right.
I went and picked up a CD copy of it, HMV I think it was, and got it home. And initially, apart from one song, which I'll mention when I go through them, I was taken aback because it wasn't like Heaven or Las Vegas.
Right.
So I probably didn't get into it straight away. It took a while. And as we were discussing this, and we were kind of sort of deciding to pin it down to Cocteau Twins for the episode,
Right.
I started to question, should I go for Treasure?
Right.
But I decided to stick up. I'll explain when I go through it, but I decided to stick with Head Over Heels, and I thought, right, that was my second album for them, and I think I can make a case why I think this could be definitive. As someone who had never heard of Cocteau Twins came along to me and asked me what album should they listen to first, I'd probably point them in this direction, because if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy their whole discography.
I think one thing to mention here, if you use Rate Your Music, which I often do, just to get a feel for something that I may not know about, I'll go on Rate Your Music, which is, a database of fans writing articles and writing reviews and giving numerical values out of 5. And all the albums, save the first and last, rank 3.65 and above. So, for example, Garland's is 3.48. That's still a very good album. Head is 3.77. Treasure 3.98. Victorialand 3.72. Bluebell Knoll 3.82. Heaven in Las Vegas 4.15. You don't usually see that high. And Four Calendar Cafe 3.65. The lowest, believe it or not, is their last album. I kind of like Milk and Kisses, but I don't remember. I'll have to go back and review that. But that's how revered the catalog is. And there are people in there that come in cold and say, yeah, I heard about this band, and I wanted to come in, and I started here and ended up here. And man, and they've gone through the whole catalog. And like I said, I think I own everything but Four Calendar in physical format. And at one point in time, man, these CDs never left my car. They just, they were a fixture in my listening experience all the time. And I just loved it. So my hair's blowing in my face. But go ahead. So get into the album itself then.
So like you mentioned in the introduction, Will Heggie had left the band just prior to them going into the studio to record the album. Apparently it was amicable. So this is only if I get this correct, it's only their second. This is the first of only 2 albums they did as a duo.
Right. Yes. Correct.
So Robin Guthrie, he assumed bass duties for the album. They did have a producer in to help, a guy called John Fryer, who did work with bands like Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, Decrypts, This Mortal Coil.
Right.
But most of the recordings, like vast majority of the albums, are handled by Robin Guthrie.
Right.
For me, I don't know if you want me to give like an overview why I think this album is definitive, or
Sure.
So this is a transition album. So Garland's debut was very much heavily influenced by the bands they enjoyed. The
Susie.
sort of Susie, Banshees, The Birthday Party, Bauhaus, that kind of gothic
Joy Division, a little bit of Joy Division in there, New Order, right.
So it's a great album, but it's it doesn't have it's I won't say derivative, but it's off that time, off the scene. So this is where they start to introduce elements of what they became probably known for. One of the songs is their first
Right.
stab at dream pop. They have the ethereal vocals. This is the album where I think Elizabeth,
Yes.
Liz Fraser's vocals come to the fore, because
They
I don't
do.
think they were too much. The music and the bass, like the bass lines, dominated Garland's, but this is where her vocals come to the fore, I think, and then obviously Guthrie's.
Yeah, they
tran-
become the third instrument, kind of.
Yeah,
Or the fourth instrument. Yeah.
and Guthrie's, I think he's playing around more with his guitar lines in this, add more effects and layers and stuff to them. And what's also quite unique, I think, about this album compared to the rest of the catalog is the variety on show. Every song is different, and I think this was them trying to maybe experiment to expand their sound. Some things they decided, right, maybe that didn't work too well, and they don't really do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But other songs like Sugar Hiccup, which is their first stab at dream pop.
Right.
know,
That's
that-
kind of the hit off the album. if
Yeah,
you will.
that's a hit, and that's right. They decide maybe let's head down this direction going
Let's
forward.
go that direction. True. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because this album does have, which I'll get into when I talk about it. You do hear some post-punky moments. You do hear some early XTC post-punk sort of vibes. And then you get some of the shimmery pop, but it's not quite as well developed as it becomes on the next few albums.
Yeah.
Kind of culminating with maybe all together culminating with Heaven or Las Vegas. Yeah.
yeah. And this is also where Fraser's lyrics are becoming less discernible.
Agreed. Crispy, yeah.
So, this is where it's harder to make out what she's singing about.
Yeah. Except on Sugar Hiccup and the track, the one that I'm going to talk about briefly on the EP on Sunburst and Slowblind, the last song, Whirlajack, or Because of Whirljack, that one has very discernible vocal, like actual words. The rest of them really don't. Yeah, you'll hear moments of it here and there.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like when I first got into them, I believe the first album I got was that BBC double CD thing, whatever that's called. I'll find it while when I shut up for a minute. But that I was like, at first I'm like, what is she saying? And keeping in mind that I'm a death metal fan, it's like, okay, I don't always really pay attention to the lyrics in that style of music at all. But I was trying to hear them in this stuff, and I'm like, I hear bits and pieces of things that sound like lyrics, sound like words, but they really aren't words, I don't think. And then I found out, she sings in this glossalia thing that is like, it's kind of a bastardization of English and Gaelic and not really any real definitive. It's amorphous, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's as a Cocteau Twins fan, your challenge in life is trying to discern what she's saying half the time. Because I mean, like sometimes it's clear, sometimes she'll have the words are clear, but you're wondering why she's put them in that combination because they don't seem to make sense going like that. And she has said it, from what I read over the years in interviews, she said that she likes to just the sound of words, of syllables and stuff. So she will combine words that grammatically or whatever don't make any sense.
This is the one I was thinking of, Peter.
Right.
That's your word. It's called. Came out in '99, which is probably around when I got into them because this is the first thing I got, and it's came out on Bella Union and Ryko Disc. It's called BBC Studio Recording. BBC Sessions spans the band's career from '80s through the '90s. Much of the first disc is Peel Sessions. Second disc is Radio 1, Saturday Night Live. Oh, they played on Saturday Night Live. I didn't know that. And a couple of... What's that?
Grey Whistle. They played in the old Grey Whistle as well.
Yeah, I don't think any of that stuff's on here. But that's cool. Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned our Bella Union. That's the label formed by Robin and Simon. after the
Oh,
breakup.
okay, right. That's right. Yeah.
And if you know like the likes of a band who are obviously clearly influenced by them, Beach House, they're on
Right.
that. They're on that label.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think from reading, like I said, interviews with Elizabeth Fraser over the years, she said like she likes the sound of words. Sometimes she said it will be English, but she'll put it backwards and
Oh,
sing it
really?
backwards. Yeah.
Wow.
So when,
That's
like I say,
trippy.
there's probably some Scots Gaelic in there as well. So um, definitely an interesting aspect of the band. Another thing that makes them quite unique.
Yeah, I have enough
But
trouble speaking forwards, not let alone trying to speak backwards. So that should be interesting. I didn't know that about that. Yeah. So go ahead and hit into the tracks and
well,
what you think about the running order and
yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, there is a lot of variety. I think on this album, some of the songs I don't think are as will become realized further in albums, especially Treasure.
right.
I think Treasure takes from head over heels the ethereal sort of music, the dream pop. I mean, those first three songs on Treasure, um, Lorelei, Evo, Beatrix, that's some of her best vocals. And that
Okay.
was one of the reasons why I thought I could go with that album. But I think because they're so strong, it, it's probably top heavy, Treasures. Where
Hmm.
I think the pacing in this is quite good. They put a couple of songs in between tracks. Well, in my opinion, songs I don't think are that great, but it sets you up for the next track.
Yeah, I have like two tracks on the whole album that I'm not crazy about, but otherwise they're all pretty much bangers or mega bangers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember your scoring system, so
You don't have to do
uh,
it that way. I just do it just to be goofy. That's all.
well, the album opens with when Mama was
I
moth.
would, I would. Here's what I would do, Peter. If it's a track that's like a super standout track, that's like an Omega or an Alpha banger or whatever. Bangers are just great tunes the whole way through, non-skippers, and then you get to the, you know, meh, like you wouldn't skip it, but you really aren't paying attention. And then there's
Okay.
skippers. I don't think there's any skippers on this album.
No.
There's nothing that I'm like, oh. And the nice thing about it is that when you look at this album, most of the tracks, with the exception of 510, I'm sorry, am I on the right one here? Yeah, 5,
Yeah,
10,
Fight
50
Town.
Fold is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Tinderbox of the Heart is 5 minutes. The rest, mostly other than Musettes, are all under 4 minutes, and many are
Yeah.
like 3 minutes.
And that's the thing about their discography as well. You know, a lot of their
Full
songs are
album,
around 3 to 4.
35 minutes. Yep.
They, they don't hang outside their welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, well, when Mama was moth, I would say, well, it's an alpha banger, so it's not your top one. It's your probably second one. I think
Right.
this is this is a brilliant intro to the album. And again, I mentioned earlier, this is when you really hear Fraser's vocals be at the front compared to the Garland's, and it's almost like a dark, sort of dissonant introduction with the reverb on the drum beat and the haunting keyboards come in. And listening back to this track over the last couple of weeks, this could almost, if you close your eyes and took out Fraser's vocals, this could almost pass as a modern day atmospheric raw black metal song.
Yeah, it could, and that is weird because I'm glad you bring that up because a lot of this band and Dead Can Dance really you can hear that in a lot of black metal bands.
Yeah.
In the atmospheric parts of their stuff where they're, we'll get into all those, I'll get into those descriptors that you'll probably use some of as well, but you're exactly right. Yep.
So then that takes you into track 2, which is 50-10 50 fold. And this is probably a mega banger for me.
Yeah.
The longest track on the album, like you mentioned. I think Fraser's vocals sit really nicely on top of the prominent rumbling drum bass line that's going through it. And then they have actually a guest on the album, a guy called Ali Gibb, who provides saxophone.
With sax, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it dances in and out between the bass and the guitar, and a touch of there's also a touch of sophistication, but also for me a wee bit of melancholy through the
Right.
song. And then
Yep.
you have the like Guthrie's guitar then comes into the fray just over about the halfway point, and together with the Gibbs saxophone, they take the song to its like dizzying conclusion. For me, just
Yeah, this one has a lot of Dead Can Dance in it for me.
yeah,
I hear a lot of DCD.
and her vocals are beautiful. I mean, when she keeps
Oh, yeah.
singing the title track over again, 5, 10, 50 full, because you can make that out quite clearly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But just goes a wee bit higher and just sort of soars over the music for me. So, and then that's leads into the third track, Sugar Hiccup, which we mentioned before. So for me, this is the first signs then of their future sound, and obviously probably the birth. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is probably the birth of dream pop.
I would say it's very close to it. Yeah, if not the beginnings of it, it's certainly one of the foundational tracks. Yes.
Yeah, and this was the song, like I said earlier, when I first bought this album, got it home, and stuck it in the CD player, and this is the song that hooked me in, because this is what I was used to from the Cocteau Twins. Cocteau Twins from Heaven or Las Vegas. It was that sort of lush, sort of sugary kind of guitar, jangly guitar that's being played, though it is quite restrained. I think Guthrie's playing
Right.
throughout the track. Fraser's vocals again is another as I highlight, probably be saying that quite often through this discussion. The drum beat is straightforward, but interesting. I was reading interviews with Guthrie, and he's talking about all the different equipment they used. He just said that he found the drum beat was essential to all their songs, which is interesting here because sometimes it just seems just pretty basic and straightforward.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Go ahead.
he knew when to keep it basic, I suppose, and he knew when it needed maybe a bit more dynamism or maybe something a bit more in the forefront. But yeah, the bass line is more or less straightforward as well. He's not Simon Raymond.
No, right,
but
right.
he does. I think he does a good job in this album doing the bass tracks, because the next one has one of my favorite bass lines, and that's track 4 in Our Angelhood, which is kind of like, this is them wearing their influences on their sleeve here. So this is really, they're bringing the post-punk sound into the album. It's pretty up-tempo. Every instrument in this song is great. The bass lines actually, I've noted down here, remind me of Simon Gallup from around that time from The Cure. Yeah, there's like that Susie and the Banshees, even a touch of The Cure.
You could really kind of make the argument that Susie might have been the very first dream pop sort of band, but they still had a punky vibe to them in the early stuff, especially. And then you talk about The Cure. You know, Porno Graffiti is like a menacing dream pop album in a weird way. It's like a scary dream pop album. It has all the elements, but it's not palatable like Head Over Heels is, right? And then there's Doriti Column. Do you remember them? That would be another one that's kind of in that vibe too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, really, I still kind of look at these guys and Susie as the two originators of that sound.
Yeah. And just the guitar harmonies and all are really great in this song as well. So this is pretty bouncy up tempo post punk, kind of picking up the pace here in the album.
Right.
Which then comes on to Glass Candle Serenade. And this is one of the tracks where I think this takes a while to get into. This is a bit of what I would sort of think is probably maybe a bridge track. It has a bit more of a rock sound.
Yeah, this one's more post punky.
Yeah, a lot of effects on the guitar, almost like, I don't know if there's like a Pink Floyd sort of psychedelic kind of influence coming through in this as well.
Right.
there's a lyrical phrase here that you can make out, which is kind of dark, which is she sings, "As pure as we are, there's only a headshot between us." I don't know if you've heard that
Good
through that
pickup.
song.
I didn't hear it. No, I didn't hear it. No.
And her vocals have a kind of echoey effect in this song.
Oh yeah.
I don't know again if it's experimenting a bit, that it's not something you really hear too much in their future catalog.
Right.
But the overriding guitar line is very repetitive, but in the background he's laying a lot of effects on it as well. And he has talked about, he said he did that at the early days because he wasn't confident in his guitar playing. It wasn't trying to be just being experimental for the sake of it. He just wasn't confident.
Right. He was watching it. He was covering up a lot of it with effects, which a lot of players do. They just do.
So this is the first. This would be I don't know, in your ranking system, this would be mid-tier.
Okay.
For me,
So it's a decent track in the middle.
Decent, yeah. I wouldn't skip it, but then it leads us into another highlight of the album for me, in the Gold Dust Rush, and this just sounds massive. This song, it has, again, another song where I love the bass and the rhythm section, and this is where it's starting to. I hear wee bits of Sisters of Mercy Floodland in this track.
Yeah.
Again, the guitars, he's layering the guitars with lots of different effects, and there's also like an American kind of twang or something on it.
It's got a little bit of a rockabilly country vibe.
Yeah, and I think obviously they're singing about the Western US, aren't they? About the gold rush back then, and the acoustic guitar that's throughout the whole track.
Yep.
And Liz's vocals, she just sounds so confident in this one, but I was really struggling to try and make out. She keeps saying it sounds like fool's gold, like you're chasing fool's gold. But again, you can go down a rabbit hole trying to pin those words down exactly what she's talking about.
I didn't spend nearly as much time trying to figure it out as you did, clearly. I'm just like, sounds good to me. I like it.
But yeah, I mean, you can, apart from that, in the verses, it's a real struggle to hear what she's singing. And then there's actually a really nice guitar lead that ends the song on a really nice high for me.
Which you don't hear a lot of. You don't hear a lot of guitar material. He's not that kind of a guitar player. He's a broad stroke painter. He makes washes of sound. Not he's not a solo dude, you know.
Yeah. Which leads us into track 7, the Tinderbox brackets of a Heart. This is a very, very experimental song for them. Probably the most experimental one on the album. It has
it's got a little bit of psychedelic stuff going on.
Yeah, and that those xylophone sort of riffs gives it kind of almost like an Oriental type feel.
Mm-hmm.
But this one's very heavy on. It's probably as heavy as you get on electronic, almost industrial light.
Yeah, real light. I mean, it's more keyboard driven.
Yeah, and that constant, just a drum beat, simple drum beat going through it. And
right, the tempo, right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, industrial light. Obviously, they never went industrial, but and Fraser really does sort of play about with her vocals in this here. You know, she actually has some sort of spoken parts throughout this track.
Mm-hmm.
And the synth is very orchestral. When it slowly builds up, but at the midpoint, you have a bit of a lull, and then it just builds right back up again. And then it's like I said, it's a very experimental song, this one, because for me it's very linear. There's no force chord,
not a lot of
chorus.
deviation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a traditional structure of a song. Just sort of plays straight through. So on the multi-foiled track 8, Kind of like this one because it's got like a cool sort of, it's like a cool funky kind of jazzy song.
That's my least favorite track.
Oh, is
Weirdly.
it?
Yeah, it just is. I'll get into why in a minute.
I don't know. It just reminds me of a song that's you're probably in the city at night, it's like an urban sort of setting.
Okay.
Because I do like the bass. It is it gets quite sparse though, and towards the end of the song, very kind of instrumental. But yeah, I do like that the
That's cool.
jazziness
That's
of
cool. We don't all have to like the same songs. It's not that I would skip it. It would just be probably my least favorite track on the album overall.
yeah. But again, I don't know really. I don't think it's stuff I never really did it in further albums either. That kind of jazzy sort of part. Sadly, it's in the penultimate track, "My Love," Paramore. I get similar vibes of Garlands from this. I don't know if that's again sort of touching to the past. Probably came through maybe the rumbling bass lines in this one that kind of just plod
Right.
along. And it builds a kind of tension, and it breaks around the 2 minutes 30-second marks, just then to start all over again. So that's something they had done on a couple of a previous track there I mentioned, where they take a break and then they build back up again.
Right.
But it's for me, it's a medium. That's a mid song, that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the final track, Musset and Drums, is something that when you get to know the discography, they always like to end on a mega banger.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is a mega banger.
Yeah, it's a killer track. Yep.
Yeah, it's an epic track.
I think that first word is musettes.
Musettes, all right, okay.
Musettes, yeah.
Um,
What that means, I don't think it means anything.
right, so it's not like French or something.
Sure
No.
I don't know. Let's see. Go ahead, keep going.
These are some of this song has some of my favorite Fraser vocals.
Small bagpipe played with bellows, common in the French court. So it's a type of instrument. How about that?
Right.
So
Maybe
drums, musettes. There you go.
yeah, maybe something similar to a French version of the bagpipes or something.
Yeah. Sounds like it is actually.
Yeah, I really love her vocals in this. They're very passionate, very powerful, and they're really intense. And they're backed up by Guthrie's kind of like a push and pull on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds really strained, creates a bit of tension that just explodes into screeches and a grand crescendo to round out the album on a high note. And again, it's not something, like you said, we talked about the leads, it's not really something he does that often. So it's really noticeable when you hear it. He's like just really going for it with the guitar right at the end. Yeah, so that rounds out the song. So yeah, finishing on a high.
What do you think about the production? I think it gets a little better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially the next
because
album.
they're self-producing. They're self-producing, and Robin's doing all that. I would imagine.
What's interesting about that is that Evo approached him when it came to Treasure and says, "I'll get your producer for the studio."
Right.
And he did not like that one bit. And if you ever read interviews with the band actually don't like Treasure.
Oh, because of that.
Because of their studio interference, and it isn't how they want it. They felt rushed.
Okay.
With it.
Yeah.
So Robin liked the production. He
liked to be in control.
Exactly, and he talked about the likes of the drum machine. He said, I think I read somewhere, he said he never had the top range one, but he'd rather program
but he knew
the
how
drums
to work
himself.
Yeah, he knew how to work that.
Yeah, and as technology advanced and then he could do it in computers, he still would rather go back to drum machines that he could program.
Well, he was comfortable. He was comfortable there. And that happens with a lot of musicians, man. They like that one thing. It's like, I know what to do with that thing. I'm not going to deviate from it. So it kind of makes a lot of sense, actually.
Because I think it's on the last two albums. Don't they have a real drummer on those two albums?
I believe you might be correct. I'd have to look. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to pull that back up because I wanted to. Hang on a minute here. Let's see. Take a quick look. That's good a good catch if so, because I did not know if that was true or not. Like I never. Uh, huh. Let's see. Doesn't really say. It doesn't say in the actually in the thing. I don't think they had a live drummer in the studio. Yeah,
Oh, did not. Right.
yeah. I didn't think so. They may have used one live. Did they use one live, Christopher? I don't know because they didn't perform. They performed live early on, then they stopped performing live. Then I'm sorry, Robin wanted to go back out, and I really don't know.
I
A
think. Well,
little bit.
I seen footage of them on. Is it Letterman?
Yeah, the
And they
Letterman
had a
thing.
live drummer.
They did have a live drummer. That's what I thought. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I don't even know who that was. I don't know. I don't know who that was. But yeah. So all right, let me jump into a little bit, and then we'll kind of tie it all together after we do mine.
Okay.
Um, so when Mama was Moth, to me, this kind of has a weirdly dreamlike feel to it. That you're like, which all their stuff, you could use that same thing like all their stuff. All of it's dreamlike, but this one almost feels like you're being held underwater. There's a little bit of a dark, sort of a menacing sort of vibe to this track. I love it. That's a mega banger for me. 5, 10, 50 fold crawling, very lush and crawling, very dead can dance like. It's a mega banger. Sugar Hiccup, recognizable words and vocal lines. They hit single off the album, and as you said, and as we both agreed, kind of the birth of their future sound going forward quite a bit. Not that it was cookie cutter, but it did become sort of kind of a pattern, I guess you could say. And the way she sings it, the sugar hiccup, it's just so beautiful. And I'm not gonna even try to sing Liz Fraser because that would be highly embarrassing to myself. I'm pretty good at embarrassing myself on these things, but I'm not going to go that far. In Our Angelhood, this next song has a bit of post punkishness, XTC, Wire, Joy Division vibe at times. Less melodic, more frenetic and urgent sounding, but still a good solid track. Glass Candle Grenades. This one's very wild, unruly, almost like a slide glissando guitar that's very melodic, but also a bit like buzzing bees. It comes at you. It's like almost like a whiny, It's kind of like I'm trying to think of like on pornography that wow, 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 wow,
Mm.
wow, wow, where it just sort of just moans out those two or three notes. This one's kind of like that, but Liz is more urgent and less melodic on that track. Oddly, though, I really dig that one a lot. That's definitely a banger for me. In the Gold Dust Rush, love the melodic guitar chords on this, almost country rockabilly vibe. Liz is repetitively crooning and yelping over top, just gorgeous. That's a mega banger. Tinderbox of the Heart, gorgeous track, really amazing melodies, but probably just a banger for me. Multifoil, that's probably the only track I could kind of skip if I had to. But it's a weird outlier. My least favorite track. All of Liz's singing in the open and the drum machine and glissando sliding chords just didn't work for me on that one. I don't love that song. My Love Paramore, cool shimmering delayed harmonics throughout, cool washy guitar chords. That's every song. Lots and lots of wet sound on the guitar. If you know play guitar, we talk about dry and wet. Wet is when you're effects laden, like it's just layer on layer on layer. Whether
Okay.
it's whether you've got choruses and more choruses and delays and reverbs and modulation in the form of tremolo, or perhaps you've got modulation in the form of flanging or phasing. That's all that shit's going on all their albums, but this track in particular, lots of cool. This one has that moaning guitar solo in it, which is not a normal thing, and then musettes and drums. Probably my favorite song on the album. Super lush, chilly and Bauhausy at times. Dark, mysterious, slippery, and sliding chords that chime out and drone. A favorite track on the album. Now, They did an EP that came out, I think, 3 or 4 weeks later. It was called Sunburst and Snowblind. You don't have that, right?
I just have the compilation CDs with all their
You have the
EPs.
artwork. Does that have the artwork for it or no?
It's I left them in the other room. They're called.
Here, I'll show it. Hang on, I can do it. Hold on.
Well, the compilation I have is called Lullabies to Violin, Volume 1 and 2.
Okay, yeah. So this is the EP, right? What the hell? What just happened there, man? That's the EP right there. I do not own it. It's on a comp that Peter has. We're not going to make him go get it. It's called Sunburst and Snowblind. This was done the same sessions, released November 18th, as opposed to the album, which I think was released October. Did I say?
Yeah, it was.
October 24th. So this comes out literally within 3 weeks. 4 weeks. I'm sorry, 3 weeks. And this one is same thing. Palladium Studios. It's 1433 in length. It's from 4AD, and it's got a co-producer, John Fryer. This has 3 original tracks that are different, that are not on the Head Over Heels album, and then it's got the 12-inch version of Sugar Hiccup, which, as far as I can tell, is pretty much the same version. 12 inches was a thing of the 80s that every band did. That has the song From the Flagstones, Hitherto, and Because of Whirl of Jack. So Sugar Hiccup, same version as far as I can tell. From Flagstones, gorgeous lush guitar, shimmers and glows, the tempo's slow and deliberate. Liz's interlocking harmonies and dueling vocal melodies are really good. Great song. Hitherto, solid track. I like it. Not amazing, but it's a good track. Because Whirl of Jack, one of the 2 English vocals that are very obvious that you can hear, the other being Sugar Hiccup. Very post-punky and shimmering, more like a radio track of the era. Perhaps the drum machines sound a little synthetic on this one, but lots of bell-like chiming guitar tones. I'm sorry. Hold on. Ouch. Guitar notes and synth sound. The synths sound like real bass, but it could be synth bass. So for me, this is a 9.25 out of 10. I love this album, and most of their stuff is going to fall in that range, except for the one I'm going to talk about. It's just a killer album, and I agree with you. It is the establishing album. It's the one where you go, oh, this is what I'm going to recognize going forward as their sound. That's not to piss on Garland's. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty solid album, but it's not as good as this, and it's definitely not as good as Heaven. So 9.25 for me out of 10. Just a really, really killer album. Christopher says their EPs are as good as their LPs. Yeah. A lot of great stuff. I have a lot of it, or most of it, on CDR that a buddy of mine bought me. But I might go out and sort of just to do the right thing, try to find the comp with all the EPs on it or something like that. There is a box set, but we were talking about backstage or earlier on. It's just stupid priced, like $400. There's no way I'm paying $400 for those EPs. So, any closing remarks on Head Over Heels before we jump into Heaven or Las Vegas?
Well, no, I just say, yeah. So, again, going back to my original point, I was trying to think of a reason of what my argument would be going up against Heaven or Las Vegas. And I think if you pick up the CD, you get to hear bits of Garland's, what their emphasis were and where they were going to go. So, and it's like I said, it's got plenty of variety on the album. Some stuff they never did again.
Yep.
Really. So it's an interesting one. I think Treasure probably would have been the more realized version.
Yeah, I think that's probably that. If I was ranking, I'd probably go second on that, to be honest with you. I think it's a more realized version of what then comes with my favorite album, which is probably your favorite album too, I would gather.
Yeah, so I went with my gut instinct when I thought, right, I have to face off against Heaven or Las Vegas. So
yeah,
it was my second album, so I have that emotional sort of attachment to it, that nostalgic attachment.
let's jump into Heaven. Why don't you show that one there, and we'll tie it all up at the very end. This is their 5th studio album. It was released September 17th, 1990. Was recorded at September Sound Studio, Twickenham, which Twickenham sounds like UK. Looks probably over in
London.
Yep. Also on 4AD, again, producer Cocteau Twins. Heaven or Las Vegas peaked at number 7 on the UK albums chart and number 99 on the US Billboard charts, becoming the band's most commercially successful release. It eventually sold 235,000 copies by 1996 SoundScan. So, yeah, I don't recall, to be very blunt, I do not recall which album I bought first of theirs, but I have a weird sense it probably was this one when I dug in and well, no, I said that actually the BBC Sessions was the first one. This was probably number 2. I can't guarantee that, but it probably was because I have all the OG shit. Man, this album is just so special. It's just such an incredible listening experience. It starts out with Cherry Colored Funk. Oh my God. It's just, I'm going to make a wild statement here. Listen to this song is probably better than Sex, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know anymore. I've kind of forgotten what the hell that's like, but it's just possibly my favorite song of theirs alongside the next one. The first 5 or 6 songs on this album are just one after another. You're like, what? Like, how the hell are they writing these amazing songs one after another, and they all sound the same but very different. That's the weird thing about they have a samey sound, but all the tracks sound different within that parameters of that samey sound.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Does that make sense?
They just move some parts about a bit to make them sound, to make the song different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of it's Liz's kind of the way she enunciates or the way she sings the songs. Yeah. It's what can I say, dude? It's been a while. It's been a while since anyways.
Well, I can say that my wife loves this album too.
I bet. It's a chick album, let's be honest. It's a chick album. So it probably makes me recognize my feminine side a little bit, but I don't give a shit. I fucking love this album. It's definitely a make-out album. It's a romance album. Let's just be honest, man. This is probably, and I don't remember if I did or I haven't. I'm pretty sure I probably have. This is a great album to have sex to, man. Not to go back to that, but I'm telling you, this album, only one album might exceed this one, and that is Roxy Music's Avalon. That album is the best album to have sex to ever. Trust me. You'll thank me later if you try it.
Or Napalm Death Scum.
Oh yeah, that's well.
If you want
for some guys, you're probably right. Yeah. But anyway, so we get to Pitch the Baby. Wow, and she had just had a baby right before this, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
And her and Robin. I don't know if her and Robin ever married. Did they marry or not?
Not that I don't think they did.
I don't think they did, but they had a kid, and Robin was definitely struggling with a lot of stuff here. He was pretty messed up on coke, like pretty hardcore into coke. Simon came in and really, really put his mark on this album. You can hear it. Man, Pitch the Baby, just magical, pulsing, swirling. Oh my God. It's just, this song is just fucking epic, dude. It is so goddamn good. You've got the phasing, the flanging effects on the percussion and drums. Amazingly well used. Just a fucking a mega ultra mega banger. So is Cherry Colored Funk. That's a mega banger. Then we get Ice Blink Luck. I mean, 3 out of 3 already. Just stunning. Has a Cure-like sound. Just like it's got a Just Like Heaven vibe to it. The verses and choruses magical. The guitar is so beautiful and shimmering. Acoustic guitars are also used in this. And I started like seeing colors, like synesthesia, right? I started seeing like greens and blues and sunshine and warmth with this song. It's so beautiful. Liz is truly magical on this one. Another top favorite song in their canon. Pure magic. 50/50 Clown, hypnotic melodies capture a whimsical and playful Cocteau Twin sound. More keys driven on this than guitar driven. Liz has multiple harmonies and interwoven vocal parts, while they claim there is more intelligible lyrics. I still can't hear most of them, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's just so gorgeous hearing Liz's incredible soprano and falsetto lines above her main verse vocal. But I do hear oceans of emotion. So yeah, there is English in there. It's just hard to hear at times. Somewhere, sometime, another mega banger. Heaven or Las Vegas, another killer banger track. Gorgeous, shimmering, lush. You notice I'm using the same words over and over. Plaintive verse, but the multi-layered harmonies on the chorus are stunning. I hear a little bit of Simple Minds, Alive and Kicking. Alive and Kicking. You can hear it if you listen. It's in there, man. And Alive and Kicking would have been first because that came out in the 80s. 87.
Well, they're actually named after a Simple
They're
Minds
Scott.
song.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Cocteau Twins? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think the song.
They're fellow Scots.
Fellow Scots. Yeah. I think Simple Minds changed the name of the song to No Cure.
Okay.
But the song was originally called the Cocteau Twins or Cocteau Twins.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, well, that's an interesting one to know. There you go. Fellow Scots, right? Fellow Scots with the. And by the way, Simple Minds would be a band I would love to do one on. But just throwing that out there into the ether there because I'm a huge Simple Minds fan. A lot of albums to go through there, though. Although, for me, probably one clear winner. Maybe two, anyways. Heaven or Las Vegas, so incredible. There is a guitar solo on this one. Sounds like a slide guitar, but probably isn't. I Wear Your Ring, another earworm and hokey track. Photo Politique, I think it is. Probably my least favorite track on the album. That's the one I just don't gravitate to every time I hear it. It's okay. I could skip that one, to be very honest. That would probably be my skipper on the album. Wolf in the Breast almost sounds like real words in this one. Can't make them out. Very down tempo, slow roll bell tones, lots of reverb to guitars. So lovely. Liz singing multiple parts that interweave and create a tapestry, which she does on most of these songs, right? Road River and Rail, mystical and olden sounding, like walking in the woods in winter with a cold wind blowing, mysterious and haunting. That's a mega banger. That's a banger, not a mega banger. And then the final track, man. Oh my God! Wow. Frou Frou Foxes was written by Simon Raymond for his father, who passed away a few days before that. He was only 27 years old. Not his dad, him, when this happened. This song is very naked, very exposed, very somber. Liz sounds absolutely mind-blowing on this song. Forlorn but gorgeous. A little bit of Dead Can Dance in there for sure. A little bit of Tori Amos, I hear, too. Or Tori probably copied her later on. And just beautiful and raw. This album's a 9.75 for me. It's an epic album. It's, I hadn't listened to it in a long time, Peter. It's been a while. And when I put this on, man, I just was reminded of what an incredibly beautiful tapestry of sound this band was capable of putting together back then. And, Christopher mentioned that Heaven or Las Vegas was their creative peak. I would agree with that, but I don't think Ford Calendar and Milk and Honey are really that bad albums. Maybe the last one is kind of a little lackluster. It is their least rated, but I do like some of the tracks on there. But I do think, without question, Heaven or Las Vegas is their creative peak, and it's the album that if I was going to expose anybody to them, this one would be the one I'd go to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just on that note, for Calendar Cafe, for me, it's just they start to sound too conventional.
A little, yeah.
Not that is criticism, but it's just compared to what they've given us before. That's probably why it doesn't sit as highly ranked in the albums for me. But I mean, there's little I can add to your descriptions here. Like you say, it was an album that came around a time of birth of their child, of their daughter,
Right.
death with Simon's father, like you mentioned.
Right.
It was also a time when Robin was working with a lot of other bands. Like he started working with Lush as another band I like. In that sort of UK shoegaze scene. I think he worked at Chapter House. So, like you said, Simon steps up because I think he gets more involved in the recording and the production of the album. And I think what's interesting too is the drum beats. They're a bit more dynamic. They're a bit more. There's more going on in it, and I think I read somewhere that apparently Robin was influenced by hip hop.
By who?
Hip hop, the emerging hip hop.
Oh, right. Yeah, I read that as well. Yep. They sound more.
Yeah.
Simon actually said they sounded more hip hoppy and a little bit, like you said, there was more going on. There was a little bit more of a freshness as opposed to the same sort of vibe with some of the earlier stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And his bass lines, I mean, we talked about similar descriptives. I can go through the songs. Like those first 5 songs, dreamy, jangly, chiming guitars, lush, trippy. I think his bass lines are very bouncy, very upbeat.
Here's a funny story, though. Do you remember? I don't know why I always did this, but I always thought Simon Gallup was Simon Raymond, and that Simon had left The Cure and joined this band. And I'm like, why do you think The Cure? Yeah, but it's Simon Gallup and Simon Raymond, and I always got them confused. So both.
Well, I mean, and you mentioned that obviously The Cure coming through. I think because he's seeing the scene that they created. You know, the shoegaze scene was starting to blossom. So you hear bits of My Bloody Valentine as well in some of the tracks, like Ice Blink Luck. I've noted down. You know, there's parts of it remind me of what was happening with the scene at the time. So they're obviously being influenced by the bands that they influenced. Reflecting that. And I just put Mark down on 50/50 Crown. This one's probably a wee bit more on the electronic side. I think Robin's guitars come into later on in that song, but there's a point. I noted it down the time, 42 seconds, where there's just a note change or a key change, or whatever, on the keyboard. Just sends shivers down my spine. You know, it's like a bridge almost into the chorus. I don't know if you have listened to the song later on at 42 seconds. And again, another highlight in that particular song is about the 2-minute mark, where her vocals are just so angelic.
Her vocals are at their peak on this album, I think.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Like I say, I think those first 5 songs, Heaven or Las Vegas, the chorus in that song is absolutely
amazing.
One of the highlights. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. What do you think of Frou Frou?
Frou Frou, I'll just go back to my notes. This is what I like. Obviously, you think it's an excellent song. I've put down here, is this a potentially hidden gem in their catalog? Because the first 5 songs are so great, and it
overshadows a lot of the rest of the album, right?
Yeah, but it's such an amazing song, and like you say, he wrote it a couple of days after his father passed away. So I was trying to understand what the hell a Frou Frou was, and I thought it's a song about death. But from what I can make out, I think the song could be about birth as well, and also about, I think she says hug. Does she say hugging or something? So is this about hugging your loved ones? You know, treasuring what time you have with them. I mean,
could be, yeah.
But I think I've started to, over the years, appreciate, because the first 5 songs just hit you so much, and then it's almost is the album maybe too top heavy. But I do like.
I agree with you. It does wane a little bit towards the end, but then Frou Frou brings it all together. But those first 5 or 6 tracks are so incredible. You're like, I'm fine. I'm good. You know.
Yeah. And I was telling you, we were chatting like a few days ago, and I mentioned there's a guy I work with. He's probably around your age, maybe a wee bit older.
You said you
And
saw him, right?
he saw them live in the Ulster Hall in Belfast, and I think he said 86. I think you might have seen him in 84 as well. And I was just telling him about, you invite me on to this show, and I picked Cocteau Twins, and he said, "What album did you pick to go up against Heaven or Las Vegas?" And I told him, and he says his favorite album is Garland's,
Ah.
and he says Heaven or Las Vegas, believe it or not, he said it was too saccharine for him.
Ah, okay. Yeah. He's
Except
probably an
for
old post-punk dude, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he but like I suppose what one word I didn't get to use is it's their probably most poppy.
Oh, without question. Yeah. Which I don't care about. I love pop, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I actually looked up what the hell Fotze politic meant. And I don't know if this is true or not, but a thing came up on Google saying it's German for cunt politics.
Oh, really? Wow.
Apparently.
Ouch. Holy mackerel.
Such a light sounding song. It's really just sort of rushes over you. I just thought that's a pretty passive song on that album. But it has a lead guitar that I noted down. It's probably the most powerful sounding lead he has written since Musette and drums.
Musettes and drums.
Musettes and drums, yeah.
Yep. I mean, I will tell you that the thing that happened with this was when I only got around to re-listening the albums right away. But as soon as I wasn't as familiar with Head Over Heels, even though I own it. So I did listen to that twice. But I only had to listen to Heaven once because I just know 80% of that album like up here, right? Because I listened to it incessantly many, many times. And turned my kids on to it, turned my ex-wife onto it, But one thing I was like, man, now I and we talked about this before we came on, and so we'll just talk about this outright here. I was thinking, man, I got to go listen to all the other albums now. Like, I got to go check this stuff out. And then I thought, well, then I could do it in conjunction with a deep dive. And then I was like, but the problem with that is going to be that every album we're going to kind of say the same things over and over and over about it. We already do that to some extent with death metal and black metal. And, there are the fun thing about doing some of these dads are when I know an album so well that I can sing every verse and chorus from an album, like a Priest or a Maiden or something like that. Those are fun because then I can be like, freaking, I can just torture you poor bastards that come on the show with me, and I can torture my watchers and go, yeah, that part where he goes, run to the hills, whatever, whatever I'm doing, I can't really do that with this stuff. It's impossible for me to do it, really.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible for me to sing, even like hum or whatever, a lot of these choruses because they're so intricately wound into the fabric of the tapestry of the music. So I would say that the chance of us doing a Cocteau Twins deep dive probably highly unlikely, just because I think we'd be saying the same thing over and over and over about 7 or 8 albums, right? Yeah. But this was great because we could pluck the best, more or less. Maybe Treasure probably belongs in there too. And we could say, hey, this is where I would start. This is where I would go if I were you. And that's kind of where I think that we kind of why this was a really great exercise to get into. If you like, shoegazy, dream pop. I mean, we mentioned a bunch of bands to look at there. A lot of people did some reading on dream pop earlier, and a lot of people say that the song, there's a song on the Beach Boys album, Sunshine, that is, I forget the name of the song, but it's super, like, they say that might be the birth of dream pop in like 68, 67. And the thing that is interesting about a lot of this 80s stuff is it does kind of borrow a little bit from the stuff like The Association. You know that is?
I've heard of them.
You probably know who's walking down the streets of the city, da, 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 da. When everyone knows it's windy. Ba-da-ba-da-da. That was called California Sunshine Pop, right?
Right.
And that is kind of, if you add a bunch of phased out, you add a drum machine, you add a bunch of reverbs and choruses and delays. If you add that to those kind of songs, you kind of get dream pop, in my estimation.
Right. Well,
And
interesting said, because I did see somewhere where Robin mentioned the Beach Boys and the Ronettes being
Ronettes,
another
yeah, another one, yeah, yep,
influences on the band.
yep, and even like this Phil Spector sound on "All Things Must Pass," the George Harrison album, which I'm going to be doing coming up with my daughter this week. That has a lot of dream poppy moments on it too.
Yeah.
Of course, the Beatles, they wrote a lot of obvious, were the classic pop songwriters, and you've got songs like, things like "All You Need Is Love." You could, if you set a bunch of shimmering guitars on that, you kind of have a dream pop song, or something like, even like "Here Comes the Sun" in the vocal, "Sun, sun, sun, here she comes."
Yeah.
That has a
Yeah,
dream
that's there.
poppy vibe. So, did these guys? I think these guys invented the sound along with Joy Division and Susie and New Order. They developed this into a real lethal sort of combination of sounds that was just, emotionally devastating in a beautiful way, emotionally moving in a beautiful way. This stuff, if you listen to this stuff and you don't feel emotional about it, you're dead inside, I think.
Yeah.
So, and by emotionally connect with it, I'm talking about just sort of you come away from it feeling good, feeling happy, feeling glad to be alive. It's not like listening to a fucking Lamp of Murmur album or a Burzum album or something like that, where it's completely the opposite. Um, they add atmosphere in an uplifting, positive sort of way, and both of these albums are great examples of it, along with Treasure. I would say that you are right. There's a slightly more popular element to Heaven, but that's what draws me to it every time. And every time, it's my number one album, easy from them.
It's an endorphin hit, isn't it? Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. And an endorphins in such a, this is so beautiful, man. You're just like, you just melt into the music, man. You fall into it like it's something you can go swimming in, like it's like it's I what did I say in my Instagram post? Candy coated dream soup or something. I don't know, whatever.
It's the lush equivalent of, was it the climbing Mount Everest in your Speedos? Was it, which band did you?
Is that what I did? That was Blue House Word, right?
Yeah.
Riding dragons in a Speedo over lakes of gasoline, right. But I think let me see what I did say, because I want to read it, because I thought it was pretty good. I said, what did I say? Well, what did I say? Here we go. I said, instead of banging our heads, we will be swimming and floating in the beautiful cotton candy magic of Scottish dream pop shoegaze band, the Cocteau Twins. So I was pretty close. But yeah, I think either way, like we said, over analysis by, or what is it? Paralysis by analysis. There's no need for either one of us to be 100% right. We just want to talk about, that's what Dad's all about. It's not actually finding the one that you can't, this is the only one you can have. You can have more than one definitive album, I think. And I think you made an excellent point about it being the transition, Head Over Heels being the transition album. Heaven or Las Vegas is kind of a transition album too, because they transition from the pinnacle and they start to kind of slide a little bit. The last two are good albums, they're just not as good, right?
And how much is that down to Robin and his split up?
Their breakup and the animosity and the trying to work together. It's like the Fleetwood Mac thing with Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. Lindsay had to get the hell out for a long time. He finally came back when everything was cool, and then they started bickering again, and he got
Yeah.
fired. So, that kind of shit, when you have relationships in bands, man, between a man and a woman, or generally that's what we're talking about, but it could be another man or two women, you just struggle. You struggle
Yeah.
when things go bad because inevitably they usually do. And so it's tough.
And it affected Simon because he said he got fed up with all the
Right.
bickering and the
Yeah,
arguing.
he was tired of being in the middle of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But anyone that's interested, Cocteau Twins, one of those hallmark bands of the 80s. The production, the lushness, the beauty of it. They're one of my favorite bands for sure. I have 9 million favorite bands, but this is definitely one of them. And I am so glad Peter brought this up because it really is kind of one that I had thought about maybe trying to do sort of a thing with it. And the more I kept thinking about it, I'm like, well, how do we do that? And also, who's going to do it with me? I got to find the right combination of people to want to do that kind of band. And at this point, I don't think it's going to be one that, for example, Roger and I did Metal Church earlier today. I own the first 3 Metal Church albums. They're canon for me. I love them. I probably won't be grabbing a lot of the other ones. And I don't think I want to do a deep dive on that band because there may be some lulls that I'm just not that into talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like I said in the comments to that stream earlier, Hanging in the Balance has probably got some of the worst artwork ever, but I think it's a great record.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like that one.
Was Mike Howe on that? Was Howe on that one, or was that his last one?
I think Mike was on that one.
I think that was the last one. Yeah. See, I don't even know. I should know that. But yeah, there's other bands, like, for example, we talk about these kind of 80s bands that so there's some bands here that I'm going to mention that I want to do. Japan, the band Japan, Richard Barbieri's band. I would love to do Japan. That are kind of in this vein. Kind of. Also Bauhaus, of course, very much in this vein, only more gothy and dark. Another one that is in this vein that I would love to do is Joy Division, of course. Simple Minds in this vein. Gary Newman in this sort of vibey areas to a degree. XTC, a little more pop. XTC is one of my absolute favorite bands, man.
Oh,
all time.
Making Plans for Nigel.
Love it. Roxy Music, Brian Ferry, Tears for Fears, Flock of Seagulls. So I have a lot of those bands on here. Aha, The Church, Big Country. Lots more to get to, guys. If I
like Echo and the Bunnymen.
Only own one of theirs. What's the one where they're on the boat?
Oh, is that on the beach? Is it?
I think it's on the beach. Yeah, that's the only one I know by them. I never dove deeper into them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be one where I'd be like, well, it's the only one I know. But yeah, Hug Dealer. Are you new here? Have you stopped by before, or do you watch from? Man, I'm a huge Church fan. I own everything by the Church. Church, probably a top 10 band for me. I love them. I don't own everything. I don't own the last 2. Sorry. Big Steve Kilby fan, too. I own a lot of his shit. So, yeah, I don't know. Have you seen Love, Sisters, and Mercy? So, that's one. Sisters is probably one we'll do because it's only 3 albums, technically. Yeah. And then there's Louder Than Bombs, and then the what's the other one called? This is the Peel Session. So that's one that I might pull 3 or 4 people in and do a sweeping deep dive on just them because you're only you're talking. It won't be a massively long, drawn out thing.
When we were kids in the 80s, at Christmas, Santa, our parents would always leave us buy us some cassettes, to listen to for the next year. And we used to get like hits compilations, so like hits 86 or whatever. And I always remember it had This Corrosion on the cassette.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely loved that song.
Oh, man, that whole album is so good, man. It's just so incredible. I love the first one, the second one. I had Vision thing. It's a little more metallic. He leans more
Yeah.
into the metal on that one. I don't love it as much. I just bought the box set, so I've got all 5 I got to go through. Fields of Nephilim. I've known about them for years. Had some CDRs of them. Didn't really get into them until recently. Like really into them, and I fucking love them, man.
I've 3 or 4 of their albums. But I got into them accidentally in the early 90s because we went into Belfast. Used to have Virgin Megastores, this big massive music store.
Yeah.
And we were getting into metal, and I was going up to buy Morbid Angel and stuff. I think it was Blessed as the Sick when it came out, and not long after it came out, we went up to get that. And we seen Fields and Nephilim, that was beside the metal section.
Yeah.
We went, that cover looks a bit dark. Had to get that there. Got it home and I was like, oh, wasn't expecting that at all. But over time, got to appreciate the band, like them.
I forgot to bring up another big band from this year that I just got the box set of, and I fucking love this band, man. Gene Loves Jezebel. I fucking love that band, dude. I love that band, man. Discover, Kiss of Life. Oh man, so many killer albums, man. So yeah, why don't you sign up, Hug Dealer? Sub up. There's all kind of stuff in the 80s. I do talk about a lot of metal, but I also talk about jazz, Miles Davis, John Coltrane. I get into all kind of stuff, right, Peter? I'm like,
oh yeah,
absolutely. I'm like all over the map, man. I do all kind of crazy, weird stuff. And the 80s is when I grew up, man. I'm 58 years old in March, and I was in high school when all this stuff was happening, and we're going into high school when a lot of it was starting in the early 80s and 1980s. So this was just super, super cool. Peter, hang on a sec. Hang on here, guys. Come back at 9:30. So about what time is it? About 45 minutes from now, I'm going to go live again, and we're going to wrap up the day with probably a fairly lengthy episode on all my purchases. There is a massive metric fuck ton. I don't know if that's actually a real, legitimate unit of measurement, metric fuck ton, but I have a metric fuck ton of stuff to go over. Just so much shit. So hey, what's up, Kellen? You might want to pop back at 9:30, Kellen, because I'm gonna be doing a super, super deep dive on all my collector scum stuff. We're wrapping up here now, Kellen. Hey,
Kellen.
Any last words, Peter?
Well, if you're new to Cocteau Twins, I would say go out and buy both the albums we've talked about, and you will not be disappointed at all. And once you've listened to those, then I would start with Treasure next. And then
Treasure would be the triumvirate of their albums would be Head Over Heels, Treasure, and Heaven or Las Vegas, without question.
But any other albums in the 80s is essential. Final 2 good albums, but I'd work with the 80s stuff first, and Heaven or Las Vegas is the pinnacle.
Yep, and it'll give you your 80s fix, man. It's great stuff. It's beautiful. Liz Fraser, one of the most beautiful voices you're ever going to hear anywhere. Her and Lisa Gerrard from Dead Can Dance, probably my top 2 singers in, maybe not in rock, because I would have to put Stevie Nicks, and I'd have to put, Ann Wilson in there and a couple others, Pat Benatar. But they're in that top 10 echelon easy. And Marissa Nadler, one of my favorites too. But yeah, it's just this stuff is so good. Hug Dealer already did a Dead Can Dance one. Go check it out. That Dead Can Dance we did back in February, I think. February or March. That's a deep one there, yeah. So I did that. We already did a major one, yeah. But and how can you be a granny at 48? How's that work?
My friend was a granny at 40.
Oh really? Okay, well there you go. My kids are in their late 20s. I don't know. Maybe I won't even be a grandfather. I don't know. Probably won't with what's going on with me. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna call it now because I gotta get a bite to eat. Peter, you hang out for a minute. Kellen, pop by later. Anybody that's watching that wants to see the collector scum from the sewer episode at 9:30, Peter's going to crash because it's way late over in his
Yeah, near 2 a.m. up for work.
Yep.
And
Got to get him out of here. But yeah, I'm going to go through just an amazing amount of stuff that I picked up over the last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, something like that. And I still have stuff coming in. Not a lot, but we're almost at the end. So, all right. I will sign off from you guys. Peter, hang on one sec. Have a good night, everybody. Come back at 9:30 if you want to check out some cool stuff.